Welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're here today because we are tackling a topic that, honestly, touches the lives of millions. Let's be real for a second. Finding a breast lump is a universally terrifying experience. Your mind instantly races to the absolute worst-case scenario. You find a lump and you immediately think, okay, now what? Well, take a deep breath because the good news is that a huge number of these lumps turn out to be completely benign. But it begs the question, how do doctors actually know for sure? How do they tell the difference between something totally harmless and something that requires urgent action? Today, we're demystifying benign breast lumps. We're going to use the clinical text to show you exactly how the medical world investigates and manages these tricky situations.
To help put your mind at ease, here is our clinical roadmap for the explainer. First, we'll cover the triple assessment protocol. Then, we'll look at fibroadenomas and cysts. Third, mastitis and abscesses. Fourth, managing duct ectasia, and we'll wrap up with fat necrosis after trauma.
All right, let's dive right into this first section, the triple assessment protocol. This is the standardized clinical investigation framework. Think of this protocol as the gold standard framework used to investigate literally any breast abnormality. It's built on three absolute mandatory pillars. Step 1 is the clinical examination. This is where a physician physically palpates the lump to check its size, texture, and how much it moves. Step 2 is radiology, getting a visual look inside the tissue using imaging. And Step 3 is histology or cytology. That basically means taking a physical sample of the cells, usually through a fine needle aspiration or a core biopsy, so they can be examined under a microscope. This triple approach is incredibly thorough. It ensures nothing slips through the cracks.
Now, you might be wondering about Step 2, the radiology part. An absolutely crucial detail here is that the patient's age actually dictates the choice of imaging. For patients under 35, ultrasound is the preferred method. Why? Well, younger women just have naturally denser breast tissue, and the clinical texts show that an ultrasound is significantly better at seeing through that density than a standard mammogram. But for patients over 35, where the tissue naturally becomes less dense over time, both mammography and ultrasound are used together to get a really complete picture.
Moving right along to Section 2, fibroadenomas and breast cysts. These are what we call structural lumps. It's incredibly helpful to mentally map out the physical differences between these two, so let's actively contrast them. First, consider the fibroadenoma. This is a totally benign overgrowth of tissue. When a doctor feels it, it's firm, smooth, solid, and highly mobile. It literally kind of slips around under your fingers. Plus, it usually shows up in women under 30. Contrast that with a breast cyst. Instead of being solid, it's fluid-filled. It feels rounded, it is not fixed in place, and it typically presents in women over 35, especially those going through perimenopause. So, say you get diagnosed with a fibroadenoma. What actually happens next? The long-term prognosis brilliantly follows what's called a simple rule of halves. It's so easy to memorize. 50% of fibroadenomas will eventually regress. They just shrink right down on their own. The other 50%, they'll either stay exactly the same size or maybe get a little bit bigger. Because of this, the clinical management is honestly mostly just observation and reassurance. Though, of course, surgical excision is on the table if the lump gets particularly large or bothersome.
But what if it's a cyst? The management of a cyst follows a seriously logical flow. First, when a cystic lump is found, the doctor will aspirate it. They use a fine needle to just draw out the fluid. If that fluid comes out clear, fantastic. They discard the fluid, reassure the patient, and boom, the lump is gone. But if the fluid is bloody, it has to be sent off for cytology to check for abnormal cells. And if after draining the fluid there's still a residual solid mass left behind, the doctor absolutely must perform a core biopsy. It's a perfect logic tree that shows exactly when simple reassurance does the trick versus when you strictly need more testing.
Let's jump to Section 3, mastitis and breast abscesses. We're transitioning here into infectious lumps.
So, what exactly is infective mastitis? Basically, it's an infection of the mammary duct. The source texts note it's typically caused by Staphylococcus aureus bacteria, and it overwhelmingly happens during lactation. The presentation is super distinct. The affected segment of the breast gets enlarged, red, incredibly tender, and literally hot to the touch. The good news? This usually clears up beautifully with just simple antibiotic management.
But that raises a pretty big question. When does a simple, easily managed infection suddenly escalate into an abscess that needs serious intervention? The answer really lies in the physical characteristics. While simple mastitis is treated primarily with oral or IV antibiotics, an abscess is a whole different ballgame. An abscess forms when that infection walls itself off into a localized pocket of pus. Clinically, you'll see this as a fluctuant, intensely painful swelling. And once that abscess forms, antibiotics alone just aren't going to cut it. They simply can't penetrate that walled-off pocket. It strictly requires surgical incision or percutaneous drainage to actually clear the infection out.
Okay, let's move right into Section 4, Managing Duct Ectasia. This is a completely different kind of presentation. Duct ectasia is a condition that typically pops up right around menopause. What happens is the milk ducts beneath the nipple become dilated and get blocked up with stagnant secretions. The symptoms are very specific here. You'll notice a tender area right behind the nipple, redness in that subareolar region, and, most notably, a thick, creamy discharge that can be green, brown, or even bloody. Now, the texts state that once this diagnosis is confirmed, usually no treatment is actually needed. It's totally benign, but there is a massive catch.
And here is your big red herring warning. Duct ectasia acts as a major trickster because the chronic inflammation and scarring can actually pull the nipple inward, causing nipple retraction. And listen, nipple retraction is a classic, terrifying sign that perfectly mimics breast carcinoma. This is exactly why you can never, ever just guess that a lump or physical change is benign duct ectasia based on symptoms alone. Professional investigation, using that triple assessment we talked about earlier, is absolutely mandatory to officially rule out cancer. That brings us to our final category, Section 5, Fat Necrosis. These are trauma-induced lumps.
The timeline for fat necrosis is actually really straightforward. It always starts with an initial trauma to the breast tissue. We're talking about an injury from a seatbelt in a car accident, or maybe a really hard sports impact. Then, during the healing phase, that damaged fatty tissue undergoes fibrosis and calcification. It essentially turns into scar tissue. The final result of this entire process is a hard, irregular lump that can sometimes even be tethered or anchored to the surrounding tissue. Now get this, here is a fascinating, yet completely surprising detail pulled straight from the clinical text. In the early stages of fat necrosis, because it's directly caused by trauma, it can sometimes present with visible bruising, or as the textbook explicitly notes, even teeth marks right over the swelling. I mean, wow, it's a striking clinical clue that points the physician directly toward a history of physical trauma.
But we have a second critical red herring warning to talk about. Remember how we just said that healed fat necrosis becomes a hard, irregular, tethered lump? Well, because it literally becomes fixed to the skin, it can look and feel absolutely identical to a malignant carcinoma. So once again, even if a patient vividly remembers getting hit in the chest a couple of weeks ago, the physician cannot just shrug and assume the lump is benign fat necrosis. It absolutely requires the rigorous testing of the triple assessment protocol. And that brings us to this core clinical rule, quoted straight from our source material. Skin dimpling and nipple retraction indicate carcinoma until proved otherwise. This brilliant quote summarizes exactly why the medical field is so incredibly thorough. We never ever assume a lump is benign without proper testing. The stakes are just way too high. Whether it's a structural cyst, an inflammatory abscess, or trauma-induced scar tissue, the baseline assumption for alarming signs is malignancy until the science definitively proves it's benign.
Finally, I want to leave you with this really impactful clinical pearl from the text. Breast lumps after the menopause are most likely to be due to carcinoma. While we have spent this entire explainer exploring all the fascinating, perfectly harmless reasons a lump might form, this quote is your ultimate takeaway. Age is a primary risk factor, and any new lump, especially postmenopause, demands immediate professional investigation. The triple assessment exists for one reason: to save lives through early detection. So the next time you hear about a benign breast diagnosis, you'll know exactly the rigorous, highly logical journey the medical team took to confidently arrive at that reassuring answer.